Two Romans seems to think it's going to be no problem because it's a completely different scenario. Completely different scenario to last season. Nothing's the same. Everything's changed. It's going to be absolutely fine. What happened last year's got nothing to do with what's going to happen this year against exactly the same opponent, at exactly the same venue, at exactly the same time of year, in exactly the same round of exactly the same competition. I don't really know. And then Stevie Smith, he's coming out and he's got exactly the same Scottish Gas and Scottish Cup stuff behind him because it's the pre-Scottish Cup presser, and Stevie Smith saying, aye, there's 6 or 7 players here, 6 or 7, 67, bad year for us. There's 6 or 7, 67 the year Queen's Park were formed. There's 6 or 7 players here who played in that game last year. 6 or 7 Rangers players, 6 or 7 Rangers players who played in that game last year. So it's so what, Stevie? So it's going to be exactly the same. So they're going to repeat it. So we've got enough players here for last year to make sure it happens again, that we're going to get beat one. The mixed messaging, could you get on the same page, please, and just let us know what you actually think? Boo! Boo, Rangers! Boo! It's just no... It's no good enough. The one thing I will say, Mr. Romans, our tour, the one thing I will say to you is, you weren't there, man. You weren't there, man. You weren't there last year. You don't know what it was like. I was there. I was there, and it was hell. It was absolute hell. Talking of which, conversation with my wife, I don't know if it was a year ago, last week. It started at some point. Intermittent conversation. Thing at work. I can't remember the woman's name, and I've heard it so many times. And it's terrible. It's so bad. Thing at work. She was at the game on Sunday. Thursday, whatever the last game had been at, Saturday, whatever it was, she was at that game. I said, "Oh, she's the Rangers game." That was the end of that conversation. I don't know if there's anything more to it, but that seems to be I could really remember from that point. A couple of weeks later, a couple of months, maybe a few years later, I can't remember. Sabrina, Katrina, Davina, Marina, I can't remember her name. I think it's Jane or something like that. She's actually got a season ticket for Ibrox. Oh, she got a season ticket. All right, whereabouts? Ibrox. No, I know. Whereabouts in Ibrox? So she put. Oh, I don't know about that. Well, that's a couple of months later, a couple of years later, whatever it was. I don't know. Was it 1970s? I can't remember. But she comes in and she says to me, Jane, Joan, Joanne, Ginty, Jessie, for work. She says she can see the wee boys. She can see the wee boys. We stopped calling the wee boys. It's the Union Bears. If they find out that I call them wee boys, sometimes they'll kick my head in. They might be wee, but they're fast. They're sharp. And it's all right, okay, right, fine, whatever. No. She's just saying that she can read the banners. She can see the banners. What? Turns out the only thing my wife is... I've had this season ticket seat for 12 years or something like that, and before that, I was another season ticket seat for like 12 years. I've basically been the season ticket at Ibrox for like quarter of a century, over quarter of a century. And before that, I had a few times in the 90s and in the late 80s, and I had season tickets, and just go all the time. The only thing she's ever remembered, to give somebody at her work an idea of where I sit, the only thing she's picked up, I bleed my heart, I pour my heart out to her about everything I've just experienced in the latest game I've been at. All she's remembered is sometimes I've got to kind of crane my neck to see what they're putting up in the banners, the Union Bears. It's only been 2 years they've been in there. That bit of Ibrox, that bit of Copeland. So I can't. If they put up banners with writing on it, I've got to kind of crane my neck because I can't. I'm too square on. That was the only thing she could tell us. But this one, she can see them, but she can read them. No bother. Great, that's fine. So she's in any stand at Ibrox that isn't the Copeland. Great. That's good. That's fine. But you should ask for. Oh, come back. No, I think she might be the same bit because she's looking to the right. No, the wee boys. It's the Union Bears. They guys, okay. They young men that go to the gym and are pure muscly and all that, and they can jump up and down for 90 minutes. The wee boys is fine. Wee boys is fine. She can see the banners, but on the right hand side as well. All right, okay. Well, maybe she's in the. You sure she's in the? Couple of weeks later, whatever, she comes in. Thing with it works. It's a padded seat she's got. It's a padded seat. She sits in a padded seat. You in no, I'm in a plastic seat. That seat's plastic because I'm not a plastic fan. Therefore, I'm quite happy to use a plastic seat because I've got nothing to prove. I think your padded seat fans, a lot of them just get me money than sense and just try to prove that it's not as good. It doesn't sound like a good a Rangers supporter as me. It could be the bar 72. Is you saying about bar 72 or Like she's sitting at the end of a balcony, at the front of a balcony. That's in front. Remember that time it took you to see the game? Kenny Miller scored 5 goals against St Mirren. Well, just doing what you don't remember anything about that. Okay, right, it's fine. Guy scores 5 goals. Doesn't remember man if the times I took her to Ibrox. I mean, it was 20 years ago, but 20 years. But never mind. I said, right, okay. Well, maybe it's as the club deck. I've not been in the club deck for years. I've only been in the club deck about 4 or 5 times in my life. I don't know if all the seats are padded up there. Are the seats padded in the club deck? I don't know. But I said maybe it's a club deck or whatever, that she's in. Which I ask her, no, I think she says there's three bits, 3 tiers, and she's in the middle one. And the wee boys are to the right hand side, and she's just near the kind of halfway line. But she's closer to the wee boys than she is to the other end of the stadium. That's the same. But she goes in turnstile 34. I go in turnstile 34. There's no padded seats anywhere near me. She said her husband owns his own company. All right, it'll be hospitality. I bet it's hospitality. He's got his own company, schmoozing folks. It's maybe a box or something like kind of. He's taking folk for something to eat and a drink and all that. And he's forest precision engineering type kind of guy. He's going to have the. No, she says just season tickets and it's padded seats. It sounds as if it's just right next. It can't be anywhere near me because there's no padded seats anywhere near me. And the best bit was I says, can you ask her if there's maybe a wee kind of wooden wall? No, patronising bastard. Maybe kind of waist height. And then you sit down, it's up about your shoulder. To find out it's in the director's box. Maybe she's in the director's box, just a much further along, and she's got herself a wee bit mixed up as to how close she is to the halfway line and stuff like that. So the other night, what happens at these games I'm at, because I'm sitting at the end of the aisle. I'm near the end of the aisle, so anybody who's any game at all, really, final whistle goes, I've got to move. Unless it's like the 1 in a million with Rangers where everybody stays to applaud the team at the end. I've got to move because being a bit on the fat side, especially folk squeezing past you, it's not going to work. I've got to leave to let everybody out. The whole row empties out. So what I'll do sometimes, I'll go up a few of the stairs towards the vomitory. But if I want to stay and give the team a round of applause, I'll then sometimes I can juke back into an empty row, and sometimes it's further along, towards the director's box, towards the but I'm just walking, 3 or 4 seats along from where I'm sitting. I was in amongst the padded seats. Every single time I've done that, I've done it for over a decade, I've been actually in amongst the padded seats, because you're still stand up. I'd never noticed, because I was looking the other night. It's so totally rang. There's nowhere near the director's box. Well, it's closer than I am, but only by about 20 seats or something. Row 0, if you start right at the Copeland, the very far end of the main stand, if you take the Copeland end of the main stand, that's seat number 1, and it goes up to the padded seats. There's no divider. There's no actual physical divider. They just run into each other. The plastic seats just suddenly become padded seats. I'm expecting a big kind of, director's box type thing, or a wee fence or something like that, but it's just, what happens there? What happens? Because sometimes we'll kind of, the folk I know run about me and all that, we'll kind of swap seats, or if somebody's brought somebody along and somebody isn't there, we'll push up and all that. But when your seat's plastic, or when your seat's padded, and somebody who you're chatting to, because you'll have to chat to them because they're right next to you, if they want to budge up one, you're getting a padded seat. But they've only paid for a plastic seat. That's got to create some sort of tension, hasn't it? That's got to create something uncomfortable goes on between, and it's number 67. The plastic seats, the last of the plastic seats is seat number 67. And the padded seat is seat number 1. I took a photograph of this all night just to show them it, because I thought I better apologise, and I don't want to have to do any more explaining. That this woman at work must be right close to me. And it's like we've zeroed it at 67. Now, is that 1967? Because obviously when Celtic won the European Cup, it changed everything. We were all quite happy having wooden seats. If we were having seats at all, there was only 10,000 seats in the main stand. The rest of it was all terracing until you got the centenary stand in 1973. But it was quite happy sitting in any kind of seat, because we had the innate comfort of knowing we were the biggest, most powerful, most successful club in Scotland. Jock Stein, Rangers supporter, goes to Celtic, captains them to the double in the 50s, but then he wins the European Cup. You might have heard about this. They won the European Cup in 1967, and that changed everything. Some people say, and I think they're right, that us chasing, trying to equal that, trying to get it back, to become champions of Europe in our own right, and it's something we always have to be aiming for. But they think the way we try to do it is what led to our financial collapse in 2012. That's what brought that about, and I can't really argue too much with that. But there's plenty of arguments, but it just feels that then we needed padded seats. From 67 onwards, we needed to feel a bit more because we're feeling generally uncomfortable about the situation in Scotland, and we remain that way because Celtic have won the big one and we haven't, and that's something that's good about it. But that dividing line, that invisible dividing line, but it's always there. The 67 onwards, we had that before. Celtic, a Catholic club, or a club, for the Irish poor or whatever, but 99% or 95% at least of Celtic supporters are Catholic. 95% of the Rangers support isn't. At least 95% of the sport isn't Catholic. Even if I'm like myself, I'm not Protestant, but I'm not Catholic either. That's and we don't want to become Catholic, but we would like to win European Cup. It's nothing against them, but that's just we want to win what you've won. It's rivalry. 1867. That's when Queen's Park were formed. 100 years before Queen's Park are formed, and they're the amateurs. They play in the hoops as well. The Airfrey Glasgow is another local derby. We don't want to become amateurs. We don't want to be an amateur team. They're no longer amateurs, obviously, Queen's Park, but not for very long. They haven't been amateurs. But they're 10 Scottish Cups. They won the Scottish Cup for the last time. Was it 1893, I think, something like that? They won the Scottish Cup for the last time. They played the final last time in 1900. And they were the benchmark, Queen's Park. Before the league was there, it was all about the Scottish Cup. And I don't know, the Scottish Cup, I don't know at what point the Scottish Cup became less important than the league in Scotland, but I guarantee it wasn't straight away. Because I remember in the 70s and 80s watching the FA Cup final in England, the FA Cup competition that is only 2 years older than the Scottish Cup. It was like if you didn't win the FA Cup, you were nobody. Liverpool were winning the European Cup like every second year, stuff like that, and they were winning 3 league titles in the bounce. They're winning every second league title on average, 70s and 80s. But if Man U won a couple of FA Cups, they were every bit as good as Liverpool. So the mistake was, I think it must have been the same thing with Queen's Park, and we won. Celtic got to 10 Scottish Cups before we ever did. But 1936, we won our 10th Scottish Cup, and I think that was 43 years after Queen's Park had won their 10th Scottish Cup. And we won it 3 in a row, and the third year we won it, I think it was third Lanark. No, we beat, is it Hamilton, St Mirren, third Lanark, St Mirren, Hamilton, third Lanark came out. But we won it 3-0, and that was Queen's Park and Vale of Leven were the only other sides to have won it 3 in a row, and we won it 3 in a row, and also the 10th time in our history because we went that quarter of a century without winning it at all. But so I thought 43 years after Lisbon, we were going to win the champion, but no, we didn't win the European Cup in 2010. But maybe it's 36. Maybe it's going to be 2036 that we. It was 1936 we equal Queen's Park Scottish Cups. 2036 we become. The main thing is it's just that I found it very kind of 67 is a hell of a number of the seats to go from uncomfy to we need padded seats to we need to kid ourselves on. We're all right with the situation. I thought it was the hedge. The hedges was the thing for me before the Brecon hedge and the Estadio Nacional Lisboa hedge. The National Stadium in Lisbon where Celtic won the European Cup in '67, won that European Cup final. You'll have seen the footage on the telly. It's basically a 3-sided stadium, so that the main stand, the bit you would normally think was the main stand, is temporary. It's a tiny wee stand, and you've got hedges. And you watch Celtic win the greatest moment in their history. There's hedges there. Well, 2012-13, when we have to start in the bottom tier, literally tiers of stadiums, when we have to start as a lower league club in our very first game, is that Challenge Cup game at Brecon. Our first ever domestic game as the underdog, as the team from a lower league. Our first ever attempt at giant killing in Scotland. We are at Brecon, we're at Glebe Park. I'm there, I had to be there. It's the hedge. The hedge is there, the ball lands in the hedge. You still get that on the Rangers website. If you look up something on the Rangers website and it's no got it, goes, oh, it's just like the ball landing in the hedge at Brecon. Do you know what you're saying? That worst moment in our history, Celtic Lisbon worst moment in our history, but the 67 thing I think is in is in there is hooped derby rivals, plastic seats. It's a QR code. It's back in the QR code. That's the whole thing. We're back in the Queen's Park. All the stuff on the actual the cards. You go in, you hit the cards at the turnstile. It's a league game. And we're winning, we won like 3-4 in a row by a single goal, and then we beat Aberdeen by 2 goals, and then we beat Dundee by 3 goals. Hit the plastic card, the smart card going against the turnstile thing. We beat Kilmarnock by 4 goals. It just gets better and better with the plastic cup, the QR codes. Struggling against Annan, losing by 1 to Genk, winning by 1 against Ludogorets, drawing 1 each with Bragg. It's a struggle. Every time you tap the QR codes and the Queen's Park QR part, it all fits in there. I'm just sure. How you doing, folks? This is your Fat Ache, 1867-1967. 5 years from formation, 5 years from our Barcelona declaration or induction, whatever, into European trophy winning status. Don't dismiss the fact that St Mirren struggled to beat Airdrie last night, because the last time we won the league, a club called Saint, won both the domestic cups. So we need St Mirren really to go through in the Scottish Cup, and quite frankly, kind of laugh at MD for struggling to beat Airdrie in the Scottish, because Airdrie are higher up than Queen's Park, who put us out the Scottish Cup. You might remember this very time last year, Queen's Park in the Scottish Cup at Ibrox preview pod, incorporating a little tiny bit of Kilmarnock and Wednesday night debrief pod, coming to you in association with Jersnet. Check out Jersnet from Friday night. It was Craig and Alan, and that's on the Jersnet YouTube channel and all other good streaming platforms. And I'm sponsored by that, and I'm also sponsored by Mariah Carey winning the gold medal for Camp in the central campo of the Campo San Siro. Mimi in Milano in Mink, a Snow Queen diva, singing a slowed down version of Valari. That's the kind of thing that fat cow Beyonce could never pull off. What an absolutely fantastic moment that was last night at the old Ford Cortina Olympics, Winter Olympics. It was tremendous. My name's Alec Anderson. Oh Lordy, I need some loving. I'm moving, touch me, John. I'm only dancing, she turns me on. But I'm only dancing, she turns me on. But don't get me wrong, I'm only dancing. This is your Fat Egg podcast. The podcast that will always bring you the first news, the breaking stories about new arrivals at Ibrox. I will be there. If anybody's going to... You're watching all these new arrivals on the pitch the other night at Ibrox, or the new signings not turning up, and I think you'll find that... Was it the Hibs game? Hibs in the League Cup at Ibrox earlier this season? Was it? It was late summer or early autumn. Was it maybe September that we beat Hibs in the League Cup, a Saturday evening kick-off? I remember standing outside doing my post-match reaction pod, and the sun was still in the sky, but it was setting rapidly, and there was a rat. I told you in that podcast, there's a rat here. It's just at the bit where I can see it just up against the wall that separates Brimlin Road from the car park and all that. No, but the lamps that go on the pitch are situated behind the food vans. It's probably folk hanging about the food vans, and they're eating stuff and they're dropping chips and things like that. And that's what's attracting them. But I told you that rat was on its way, and it's on the pitch. The other night, it starts off in with the Kilmarnock supporters in the wee corner bit in the Govan there. Then it's on the pitch at Ibrox, and I broke that news. That was the exclusive that I broke to you back in September. So come to me for all the news about arrivals and stuff. It's in the conduits. Let's see where they put I think they're in there. I think they're running up and down there, because that's where the conduits are. It's the coverage, Sky and the Setanta and Premier Sports and all that kind of stuff. That's where the cables, they open that bit up and it runs under the food vans as well. The cables, they go for the big vans they've got out there under into the stadium. So you want to open them up. You have to go and see the guy. You have to go and see the guy at the front door. He'll contact the service manager and he'll let you in there. But you have to open all that up. They'll be running up and doing that. That's probably how they've got in there. But the Rangers manager, head coach, became a manager the other night. I feel his reaction, he was puzzled by our reaction, the fans' reaction at half time, and good on him. It broke my heart. It broke my heart watching Danny Röhl, his press. I mentioned it in my post-match reaction pod that, outside Ibrox, no rats about because I knew it was inside the stadium. So it's just moved on. I'm still in the same bit though after the game, and I was just talking about how there'd been a bit of tension in the air, and it was Tello Asgard that was getting most of it. I don't know if I actually mentioned the boos at halftime because it's so bad. It's so common. I didn't even notice it really. It's just something that happens all the time. It wasn't the worst boos, certainly, I've ever heard at Ibrox, but people were just, I think it's just the Rangers crowd's way of saying, we would quite like it to be 2 goals. We'd quite like to be 2 goals ahead just now. Boo! There you go. I was only thinking about it, and then it's the next day, because by the time I got up the road, it's like midnight. And upload the pod and all that. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I need to go to bed here. I don't watch the manager's post-match reaction. I don't listen to all that until the next day. And so it's on Thursday that I'm watching Danny Röhl. And what you do, like most folk, probably like myself, will watch the actual press conference. It goes up on Rangers TV. By the time you go up the next day, it's on Rangers TV, on the Rangers TV YouTube channel. You'll watch the actual presser when he's talking to the assembled media in the press room at Ibrox. But if you watch the reaction to Rangers TV, there's always a little, and I sometimes dismiss that because it's in-house, and like any in-house organ should be, it's not going to be in any way prosecuting any kind of bad stuff with the Rangers head coach. It's just there as a kind of, it's just all niceness, isn't it? It's just all niceness. It's going to be very friendly too, because they're all employees of Rangers, and you need that as well. You need a kind of medium you can go to, which is just, it's going to be friendly, it's going to be on side, it's going to let you say stuff, but you're not taking it particularly seriously because no proper bad stuff's going to get brought up. But I watched that. It's only 5 minutes long. You should watch that as well. I think what must happen is he hits, because it's always, I think it's filmed in the tunnel. It looks like it's filmed in the tunnel, the Rangers TV interview. I think sometimes when at away games, it's filmed out in the pitch, maybe after he's done the actual press conference itself. But I feel as if this was filmed before he hit the media room. He's raging. He's absolutely livid. He gets the standard question, kind of, how do you think that went tonight, Danny? And he talks for almost 2 minutes without stopping. And it's all positive. It's all explaining the game, but there's no smiling. You can see in his face something is up. And what I would ask you to do, if you've not watched it before, or go in there and watch it again, so it's only 5 minutes. And you need to watch it to have a word with yourself at what you're doing to this man. It was embarrassing. But if you just imagine that at the end of every sentence or every statement he makes, at the end of every clause and every sentence that he comes out with, if you just put in the words, so what the fuck are you booing for? So what are you booing for, eh? I mean, obviously, when you go down to 10 men, a team goes down to 10 men, it's going to take you like an hour sometimes to break them down. And we did break them down, and eventually we win the game quite easily. So what the fuck are you booing for? It's implied in his face right the way through. There's no smiles in that presser whatsoever, because normally they're talking to the in-house guy who they talk to every day. There's not going to get any difficult questions here. Sometimes it's quite jolly and dismissive, the in-house, the Rangers TV interview with the manager. This is a man needing to vent. And then he goes into the main presser in the press room, and it's about 2 minutes into that, and there's no smiles. You can see he's agitated. And there's about 2 minutes into that where somebody asks him something about the atmosphere at half-time, about the fans venting a bit. And he replies, you can see him just thinking, yeah, this is what I'm here for. I've got to mention this. He says, I'm honest to you. The fact is that sometimes broken English, I mean, much, much clearer than anything I'm saying in this podcast. I'm rambling away, as you know already, in this podcast, and English is my first language. But there's something about the translation that he's making, which sometimes doesn't work out grammatically perfectly, that makes it even more clear and heartbreaking. We had it, I'm honest to you, I couldn't understand this, the boos at halftime. I must say this, I love our fans really, but today I was really surprised. In the last couple of weeks, we spoke about we want to be together. We lead early. We need the crowd. I was really surprised. It's not about me. It's all about my group. They deserve the credit. And sometimes, very soon and very quick, we forget about the position we were in 10 weeks ago. Maybe this deserves sometimes a little bit of positive energy. It was awful. I felt totally ashamed. It was like one of the moments I didn't boo. I didn't boo MD, and I was going to come on here and just Andy, did you boo at half time? No, Gaz, did you boo at half time? That's just me. You're just talking to you. You booed. You booed. Mr. Rowe, he booed. I didn't boo. He booed. You fucking grass and get. I'm not taking the cop for it. He totally booed it. I'm fine. I'm fine. I would never boo at half time. It was awful. He's raging at the start of that interview. By the end of the interview, the press is about 10 minutes, 11 minutes long. He's laughing and joking again. He's back to his normal self. But it obviously hurt him. It hurt him. He really took umbrage with this, and I feel awful about it. I feel absolutely terrible, and I just want the place to sing his name something crazy tomorrow. Although it's all going to be Wayne's and that there tomorrow, because Scottish Cup game's not on the season ticket, and it's live on the telly. It'll be as big a crowd, but I just it was something else. I felt really, really bad, and I think he's just got to that bit in his Ibrox tenure, short as it is, but he's just got enough credit in the bank. It's enough love in the bank. He clearly has a lot of steel about him, Danny Röhl. Sorry, but he could get away with it. He's got enough credit in the bank with the Rangers support where he can just start to give us a little bit of. He's no lambasting us, and he's qualifying everything else by saying, "I love these fans. I love you so much." But I think we love him back enough that it's getting to that point where he can give us a little bit of a tongue lashing. He can say, "Wait a minute," and he would talk in both those interviews with Rangers TV and the actual press conference. He's talking about how it can take. Everybody knows that when it gets to, when an opposition team goes down to 10 men, they just defend even tighter sometimes, and it's going to take you longer to break them down. It took us maybe 60 minutes to break them down, but then we start getting the goals, So what are you booing for? It was it's quite bad. It was really bad. I think about like Cyril Dessers and Václav Černý. Cyril Dessers a couple of times in his Rangers, 2 or 3 times in his Rangers career, and Václav Černý was against Leon. But he had a horrific miss against Leon. I don't know if it was the same game. It was round about that. But Leon beat us 4-1 at Ibrox, and I think he had a chance to put us 2-1 up in the game. It was a really bad miss, but it was the last bad miss that Václav Černý had, and he just arrived there. So he did something else afterwards that he did, and he put a perfect cross in or something shortly, and he got a barracking. It might have been like a game, a different game, a game soon after that. And he just turned around, he's like running down the Govan side or whatever in the first half. He just turned around, "Oh, shut up! Fucking having a go at me." And we're like, fair dues. That's sometimes what we need, And Václav Černý has a fantastic season. He's squishing the Celtic fans with the water bottle. He's a legend. And Big Cyril never got the legend status, but he was ready. And he would do that whole thing. He'd put it beautifully in his press conferences, that whole thing. They're a great club, but they're a hard club. I can't remember what it is. A way of talking about Rangers, like he gets it, during games, he would just turn around every now and go, "Oh, shut up! What? You having a go at me?" Fair enough, sir. I'll carry on. It was good, and I think Danny Röhl has got that. He's at that point where he's earned that, and we thoroughly deserved it. He said a thing in the Rangers TV 5-minute, which I would advise you to watch or rewatch. Which is our players deserved a lot of flowers today. Our players deserved a lot of flowers today. That's a beautiful translation. It must be a German expression or whatever. He deserved a lot of flowers today, but what was implied as opposed to the fucking raspberries that gone off at half time, it was quite a thing. So they're getting booed off the park because they're playing against 10 men and they're only 1 goal up. We were frustrated. We want to see, but he's saying this thing of we created a chance. We did something every minute thereafter. He was talking about how beautiful the goal was. The players are doing what I told them by making runs into the box. You've got to make runs into the boxes. This is obviously coming from the lack of in the opposition box action at Easter Road or inability to create anything at Easter Road on Sunday. So they're taking on board what he's saying. And he's thinking, how can I keep making this point to my players when they're getting booed for doing what I've actually asked them to do, and it's working, and it's going to work even better as the game goes on. But they're getting booed. But he kept talking about the fact that it takes a while to break down the opposition, and that when we got the goal, when we got the pen, as he calls it, and the beautiful run from Gassama, as well as the great ball from Mikey Moore, we then did something every minute. It was every minute of the game after that, which led to an action. I can't remember his exact phraseology. It was a corner or a shy, a free kick in the opposition half, and a dangerous chance where we're getting every minute, even though, and they created a chance because we weren't very good in transition or something like that. But he just explains it on and he goes, bring on these players in the second half when we've knackered Kilmarnock and we take them to pieces basically. And if you just hang on for a wee second, it would be fine. We're only getting beat. We're only winning 1-0 at half time. That's no good enough. And you can see him thinking to himself, where's this coming from? Because 10 weeks ago, a few times he's just said, He says Walter Smith would do this kind of thing as well, where he would just play Chris Boyd against Stuttgart. You know, when we're already out the Champions League group, he would play Chris Boyd against Stuttgart because everybody kept thinking, oh, Chris Boyd scores lots of goals, so play him up front, we'll score goals in the Champions League. And we get beat 2-0 and hardly get a touch of the ball because we've got Chris Boyd up front, so we've got even less of the ball in midfield and stuff like that because he doesn't do the work rate. He just do stuff every now and then to let you see, that's how crap, that's what happens when I do this kind of stuff. I'm getting told today by people who've never managed a football club in their life. I think it's quite good. Daniel's got a wee bit of that about him as well. But once in the league this season, we have been winning by more than a single goal at half time, and that was against Aberdeen. Just quite recently, Aberdeen at Ibrox, because we're getting there and it takes time. You know, you've got to have some sort of cognizance of how bad we've been, because we all seem to be protesting quite hard about how bad Rangers were at the beginning of the season, but now we're expecting them to be fantastic and have games won by half time just 10 weeks later. But we were beating Aberdeen 2-0 at half time, and the final score was 2-0. That's the only other time in the league this season we have been winning a game by more than a single goal. That's rubbish. We're beating, that's at Ibrox. We're beating Dundee 2-0 at half time at Dens Park. But I'm talking about games at Ibrox where you've got to get the most of the crowds, maybe some of the tourists, booing them. We have only been more than a single goal up at half time once in each of the 4 competitions. If you count Europe, no, Champions League and Europa League as one competition, we were 2-0 up, I think, against Polzenia at Ibrox in the second game of the Champions League qualifying. We won 3-0 full time. We were 2-0 up against Annan Athletic in the Scottish Cup. You know, won that game 5-0, but they're like part-timers from League Two. We were 2-0 up against Hibs in the League Cup quarter-final with the Rats outside. But that was a final score again, and that one, 2-0, was how that ended. Even Alloa in the League Cup were only 2-1 up against them at half time. And so is that all the competitions? Aye, that's all the competitions mentioned. It's just not something that we do. I think Thello Asgard was we're getting towards doing it, of course, but Thello Asgard was getting most of the abuse, the scapegoat for a 5-1 win. That's no bad. And I was hearing Rangers Review talking about it. I was watching Asgard myself, and I'm not seeing a lot of effort from him. And I noted the effort he was putting in against Dundee and against Ludogorets in those 2 recent games at Ibrox. So it's only fair to say that I could notice I didn't think he was putting in the same amount of effort, but he was definitely getting involved. And it's when he got involved in the penalty box in the first half and kind of laid the ball off. And as I was talking about my post-match reaction pod, Danny Röhl has said something that the players need to take an extra touch. That's going to help them put away more chances. Maybe that was him taking the extra touch. That was when the howls really started. I think it was about maybe 30 minutes into the game. We're already 1-0 up. It's still we're no winning 2-0. I thought it was getting a bit much at that point in time. But as Rangers Review, it's a lack of effort. He doesn't do enough. Thello Asgard doesn't put himself a bit. We love Mikey Moore because he's really busy. We love Mikey Moore because he's good, because he's quality, because he's sensational. He's going to absolutely do the bit. He's going to have a fantastic career if he doesn't get injured and he carries on the same trajectory. It's quality that counts. And sometimes you're number 10. If we were asking him to play that number 10, that creative role, they're a kind of conductor of the orchestra. They don't want to go anywhere. They don't want to sit in that pit, if you like, and conduct. They want to be on the podium facing the pit. They want to just conduct, and they can't move about. They can't be running about all over the place trying to pit, because we need them at the centre of the action. We need them at the core, just outside the box. And there's players have different ways of doing things. I remember, it was Bongani, what was his name? Bongani Zungu, South African fella that signed for us during the 55 season. I think we got him in during the January transfer window. Remember we beat Hamilton 8-0. Now, we're not in the stadiums, but watching it on Rangers TV. We beat Hamilton 8-0, and we're 4-0 up at half time. And we beat them 4-0 again in the second half. So, fantastic performance. I remember, I think that was his debut. I think he came on at half time. Game's 4-0 up, let's give the new guy a chance. And I don't know if it was Steve Davis he replaced or whatever, but he comes onto midfield, and he was just... He's everywhere. He was battling about everywhere, and he took his first involvement. Somebody plays the ball to him, in the centre circle. He can't see any options, so he turns it round. He swings round and he just batters this thing about 10 yards in front of himself and runs into the space. Turns round again and he whaps this 20-30 yard pass up the left wing and I think it gets whoever it was. And I think he overhit a few, but I thought, no, he's wanting to push us up a level. He's saying, get after that, chase that, and he's whacking these boys to the far corner all the time and running everywhere. It was all action. And I thought, he's going to be great. He looks really impressive. And he did this the next time he played for us, and the next time. And I eventually realised what he's doing he's just all effort. He's putting too much effort into it. He's actually making something pretty simple look great, because we had Steve Davis and Ryan Jack in the team at the time, and Glenn Kamara as well. Steve Davis is probably an unfair comparison, but Steve Davis would just turn 180 degrees and fire the ball straight to somebody without you even noticing. He'd take the ball facing his own goal, and it's like Steve. He had this turn. He was diminutive to start with, Steve Davis. He's not bulky in any way, but my God, he's a Rolls Royce of a midfield player, one of the greatest players I've ever seen in my life. A privilege to watch Steve Davis playing for Rangers. And he would just take the ball and turn and just fire it out to somebody with such grace and elegance and economy, which is really important. The untrained eye would think Zungu was the better player because he's putting all the effort in, he's running about, he's batting the ball. It's no getting us anywhere. He's not as good a player. So I would, any of the new arrivals, I would be cutting them all a break until next season. And half of them aren't going to be here. I know that. Any of the guys who joined at the beginning, because it was such a tumultuous time at the beginning of this season. I think they all deserve another chance, really. I think we get it wrong. Sometimes we don't even know, is what I'm trying to say, what's good for us, never mind thinking we know what's bad for us. Magoma coming off the other night, that should have been the biggest stand. I said that in my post-match reaction. That should have been the biggest round of applause, the loudest ovation the other night was for Jaden Magoma coming off the park. The shift that boy has put in, the shift that young man has put in, and the improvement in him. Giving us somebody nothing else, because we had this we'll get rid of Yilmaz, we'll get rid of Hefty, and suddenly we're left with just this young fella who's a teenager. And is he 20? I think is he still 19? Maybe about to turn 20. He's unbelievably young, and what an atmosphere to bring him into! Just absolute uproar at Rangers this season. It's been ridiculous, and he's a bomb scare to start with. We have to go 5 at the back basically to accommodate him. All the defensive frailties, but it gets better and better and better, and then he's been invaluable to us. This run we've been on that's got us back up to the top of it's Jaden Magoma personifies the effort, the endeavour, the concentration, and the improvement that run has required. So he should be getting the standing ovation, because that's probably he's now got somebody. I mean, Two Romans comes on and is like a Rolls Royce as well. He's fantastic when he first comes on, so maybe that's it. Maybe Jaden Magoma. We're going to need everybody this season, but you're thinking, yeah, that doesn't mean to say Jaden Magoma doesn't deserve all our praise, all our thanks. The biggest roar goes to Ryan Nadiri. That's fine, that's great, and I think he is going to be great for us. He's going to be a total hero. But what is that all about? We've signed a third division player for Germany for £5 million nearly. Let's cheer the rafters for him coming on the pitch. Why? Do you know what I mean? Give him a big cheer and all that, yeah, but just make sure you cheer Jaden Magoma louder, because he's done something. He's a concrete service to Rangers. Nadiri's done bugger all for us yet. I mean, I hope it starts in this game against Queen's Park, a quick 5 goals or something. But I feel something we get it a bit round the wrong way sometimes. I know it was 10 men were playing the other night, but Jesus Christ, we really get it round the wrong way sometimes. And I think Thelo Asgard and everybody else, as Danny Rowe kept saying, they've battered Kilmarnock. They've been up against Kilmarnock, really going toe-to-toe with them. It's a Neil McCann team. They're grinding us. They're working like hell. They've got a kind of bitter edge about them, and they're not scared to come at us with the foot. But it's a tough game, and they've softened them up. So Chukwani, Romans, or Chukwani didn't come on, but Romans, Nadiri and Scott Wilson can come on and just take all the glory for finally putting them into something, for finally pushing them over the edge. Come on, but I really felt as if we got it kind of the wrong way around the other night. It's maybe I go too far the other way. Like the Scottish Cup, it's the Scottish Cup this weekend. I remember we played Dundee. It's 40 years ago. I'm talking here, folks. Sorry, but we played Dundee 3 years in the trot in the Scottish Cup. They put us out the second 2 years. The third one being John Brown scoring the winner against us at Ibrox, and in the whole place giving it Ali get to fuck, telling Ali McCoist to piss off. We're more than just booing him. The abuse he was getting, and what did he ever do for Rangers? No, we were right about that one, weren't we? But the first of those games, I was there with my uncle. I wasn't going every week at that point in time. I would be like 13, 14 or something. And I remember being at this game, and I grew up in the era where Rangers were getting crowds, sub 10,000 crowds. And I think the official crowd at that game was between 17 and 20,000 or something. And I was in the Copeland with my uncle that day, and I turned around to him and I'm going, "Oh, it's a good crowd today, isn't it?" He's been at Ibrox. There's 90,000 there against Celtic and stuff. 80,000 against Torino and against Bayern in the Cup one. And it was one of the few days I just remember him looking at me going, "Fucking hell," as if to say how far the standards have fallen, and it is a sliding scale. There's sometimes you've just got to say, "This is crap, this isn't good enough," and you've got to let the players know about it, you've got to let the management, the owners know about it. But I think more often than not, we go too far the other way. So I'm a happy clapper. There's no two ways about it. I just love Rangers. I just love going to the Fitbit. I love being there. But I mean, obviously the team winning or losing makes a hell of a difference to that whole experience. It makes a whole difference to my whole life. I love football and sport in general. If Rangers are winning, if Rangers are getting beat, I only care about it. I only want to know Rangers. I used to think that. And I am a fan of all kind of football. I love all football, and I don't love all sport, but I will watch any kind of sport. I find it all fascinating. I find it hard to just flick through the sports channels the same way I find it hard just to flick through the movie channels without hanging about to watch a bit more and find out a bit more about what's going on. And I thought if there was Rangers just happened to be my team, I loved them dearly. I knew how much I loved them, but that's just football. I love football in general, which meant somehow if in some mad scenario Rangers weren't there, I would be able to go on and just still, I could go and do all my ground hopping. I could go over to the continent and still see. It's amazing how when what happened to Rangers happened in 2012, and we had to circle the wagons. Psychologically, emotionally, I did exactly the same. I did not care. All my other kind of external interests about football, European finalists and stuff like that, European, the top flight in Scotland, I couldn't have cared less. How are we getting on against Montrose? How are we getting on against Queen's Park? If there's no Rangers, I don't fucking want anything else. It was a wee lesson to myself as well. That I do need Rangers to get to a certain point. I think some folk are there to ensure the team are being abusive and all that, kind of permanent angry, and it's to ensure the team improves. They would tell you, well, I think some of them are, but some of them will only turn up when the team improves. And I think like some kind of I don't know, is a displaced guilt about that. They then do nothing but slag the team when they do bother coming along. Gillan Balag, I think it was Andy McGowan of Heart and Hand. I follow him on Twitter. I don't. If I post on Twitter, I just try and post something that's anti-Trump and anti-reform and therefore anti-Musk, because it's horrendous what's going on there. But I still, you just need to keep in touch with it. That's why they've got you by the balls, these companies, like Bezos with Amazon and stuff like that. Anyway, blah, 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 enough politics, Alec. So I'm still on Twitter, I'm still, to keep in touch with stuff. And it was Andy McGowan who'd put something up in his account. If the guy for Heart and Hand, he's always quite good value. And he posted a Gillan Balag long tweet about COVID, about what had happened to the male psyche or everybody's psyche during COVID, how it pushed us over the edge into living off our phones, living off our screens, and it's almost like we go to the football, we're kind of doom scrolling. This is what I was taking from it anyway. It's like we're now just doing. It's like we're not getting exactly what we want, exactly what we expect straight away. Let's go mental. Because on the internet you could just abuse anybody, just send them abuse and stuff like that, or just move on to the next thing. At best, it's like we don't have this thing. Even 90 minutes, folk don't read anymore. Even for 90 minutes, folk can't. That's too long to get on a season. Writing off a season. I want everything I deserve right now because I can do that on the internet. I can do that on my phone, with YouTube Shorts and TikTok, whatever. And I thought that was great. It's quite good, And COVID, people not being able to go to the house, not having like a year where they're not really engaging in real life. There's something unreal about real life. It just drove us all into our phones, and I think that's really good. It's a really good theory, but it's always been like this at Rangers. I think it's always been like this. most supporters, most support groups are probably like this, but I'm only concerned with our support, and it's a kind of neurosis, a kind of mass psychosis, I think, and I'll always believe, I think I'm open to persuasion. Otherwise, if somebody wants to convince me otherwise, I would definitely take that. But that we ended up in the fourth tier of Scottish football because of a total inability to appreciate the good times. Now the kind of perma angry supporters feel that we ended up there because of people like me. My kind of happy clapping enabled Murray to destroy the club. But I think it's telling that David Murray is the one who takes far more abuse than Craig White, who openly and deliberately and immediately went out of his way to drive the club into administration. It's almost like because David Murray was successful in that, so you have to be cleverer by saying the successful guy. Is the worst one. There was never any kind of loyalty to David Murray, and it's quite right. We shouldn't be loyalty. We certainly should have no affection for businessmen, owners of Rangers. I don't have any for Marathi and Kavanagh, even though I can be grateful to them. There was, but I think I kind of helped drawing a limit between the extra 20 to 30,000 fans we acquired when Souness arrived. I mean, obviously it was Lawrence Marlborough was the owner when Souness first arrived at the club. And it was a couple of years later, 3 years after Lawrence Marlborough took over at the club. It was 88, late 88 when David Murray arrived, brought in by Souness. But even then, even 86, 87, it wasn't sellouts every week at Ibrox. It took a while for it to become like the stadium sold out every week. And I think just after Souness arrived and they brought Murray with him, there's this kind of totally inordinate, misplaced kind of campaigning zeal for more and more. I think a lot of supporters arrived, and this just so happens I was born at that time in the mid-80s. If I would have been older in the late 70s, early 80s, I would maybe have been chucking Rangers as well, because it was so bad. We didn't win the league for 9 years and finishing third, fourth and fifth in the league sometimes in that 9-year period. But I just loved Rangers, loved going to football. You're young, everyone's exciting. So maybe I wouldn't have had that loyalty then, but I can't help thinking that this extra 20, 30,000 folk that are turning up regularly are just going to, maybe nobody's into it as ourselves, maybe nobody's into it. It's a kind of performative anger masquerading as knowledge about the club, rage masquerading as affection, cynicism in place of kind of feeling. It's like you see this from so many tourists. That European games are the worst. I say tourists, but I mean it because there's a seat behind me, directly behind me, that it's not a season ticket the whole time, like 12 years or so. It's a single seat, and there's no ever been a season ticket holder, or there has, and they've just been in absentia the whole time. But it's only like European games, big European games, that suddenly the place is full and every seat gets taken. It's a different person turning up there all the time, so I'm assuming the seat doesn't have a season ticket. And it's 9 times out of 10, it's a nut bar. It is somebody who's just there to hate Rangers or hate the opposition or hate the referee, spit all over my head anyway. I know I sound like a total snob here, but it's like, I give it loudly, obviously. I'm deeply, deeply involved in the football, get deeply, deeply involved in Rangers games. But there is this. It feels like it feels totally performative. It feels like I need to prove yourself. And you're thinking, where have you been? Where have you been for the last 12 years or whatever? And you're in here telling us, and usually the kind of guys who are, standing up and all that when nobody else is standing up, come on, fucking get a bit of atmosphere going and all that. And you're like, I just come here all the time, mate. I come here and support the team all the time. You've decided to turn up and you want the whole stadium to be the way you imagine it. Or are you feeling guilty about the fact? Are you feeling like we're all talking to each other around about? Are you thinking to yourself, right, they're going to know that I'm not a season. I don't care. You're not a season ticket holder, But it's just, don't start trying to tell us how to support Rangers when you clearly haven't been supporting Rangers for the longest time. But it's the most important games in my life, the big European games, and the bigger they get, the more tourists they attract. It's this kind of, it's a really perverse thing that goes on in football in general. But I think it's innately kind of self-conscious about their lack of loyalty. These people that they always need to front. It's like the Wayne. It's always the Wayne who does least for its parents that is the first one to tell its siblings where they're going wrong and stuff like that. And like you go and see your parents every week or something, and it's the sister or brother who couldn't care less. That will suddenly when the day turn up, it's the greatest visit ever, and they love their mum so much. I feel it's kind of performative stuff that's trying to make up for it. I hate the idea that this is as good as it gets. At Rangers just now, this is the feeling as a fan, because it's already starting to peak. Do you know what I mean? We're not winning early enough, well enough. We couldn't win at all. Just like 2 minutes ago, New folk are getting absolutely mental. But I think people turning up in the Soonest era, the 80s into 90s, and getting into the sea, so many folk you could just tell it was a choice between the season ticket or the golf. And they might treat it the same way. And they need to be in the know the same way they're at the golf with the chat and all that there, and in the 19th hole and stuff like that. It's not like that at the Fitbit at all. But there's, I feel they would look at Celtic and the zealotry at Celtic, and Celtic are a different club to us. And there's so many parallels. There's so many. Obviously, they're both the same side, different sides of the same coin in so many ways, Rangers and Celtic. But there is a different thing at Celtic. There's a different feel, and there always has been. And I think a lot of our louder campaigning supporters, the ones that wanted to get shot of Murray and stuff like that, there was very much this thing. Look at Celtic; they keep complaining about everything, moaning about everything, and they get it. But I don't want to fucking get it like that. I want to earn it honestly. I want to earn it in the Rangers way. I don't want us to have to do that. And when you start trying to be something you're not, something cataclysmic can happen. It wasn't their fault that we went into liquidation, but it certainly wasn't. They weren't encouraging David Murray to hang about any longer than he was. I don't know, but it's. I'm just worried, having been through all this, having watched Rangers unable to win the league for 9 years, unable to finish second in the league for the best part of 9 years, and then suddenly we're going for 9 in a row, and there's people round about me saying, what's the point of winning the title if you can't win the European Cup? You can't win. Now, no, ambition's great, but framing it like that, this is rubbish because it's no the Champions League final. Suicidal, and we end up in a situation where we aren't even in the top flight. It's going to take us 4 years to get back into the top flight. Never mind how long it's going to take us to start winning it once. And I'm just worried that this, just trying to kind of stamp it out. Not that I can do it, but just before it gets any worse. That these are the good times when you're actually going from a bad situation up the way into a good situation, because once we get there, sometimes it just becomes totally toxic. I'm already seeing it. People that haven't been coming much this season, coming back and never being happy. It's the glorious thing this time though is that Celtic fans are actually copying us. It's ruined their season. Well, they could still win the double. They could still win the double and a European trophy. But it's almost like a reversal of what we did in the 2000s. Celtics, they're still doing a bit of it under Martin O'Neill and all that. Maybe it's because Lawwell has left, but their whole thing was always to blame referees and blame a society that's against them. But now they're doing the protesting the board and getting rid of Lawwell, the guy that brought them all this glory and stuff like that. And they end up getting totally shafted with the Wilfried Nancy appointment. They're trying to, I don't know how their boycotts has worked tonight, but anger and outrage and activism is what's needed in society at large just now. But I think we as a support seem to have no time for just plain love. We love the club and we get really emotional when they win something big and all that. They can only win something bigger than usual so many times. It's the league, and we win the league for the first time. We retain the league for the first time since 2012. It'll be brilliant. It'll be phenomenal. It'll be great. But I feel that I'm just worried about setting ourselves up to go backwards again with this kind of attitude. Like Stevie Smith has to be diplomatic, and he was saying, when asked the other day in his pre-Scottish Cup presser about the reaction of Danny Röhl to the fans booing at half time, we're going to need the fans. He's saying everyone together, and Danny Röhl's worked at big clubs before, so he gets it. That was his way of saying it. He gets it. He doesn't need Stevie Smith to tell him what Rangers are all about, as the journalist was implying. There has to be a kind of an understanding. Stevie Smith was saying that some of the fans, the pain they've been through for the last 10 to 15 years, and that's great. That's all absolutely fine, but sometimes it feels like the fans themselves don't understand the pain we've been through for the last 10 to 15 years and how we got there, how we got into that situation. I don't know. I'm not Irving Goffman. I'm not trying to... I'm not there. I'm there to audience the team. I'm not there to audience you as a supporter, whether it's sorry, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to that kind of supporter. There's people I see who are genuinely raging, it's the sheer love of the club, who just lose their shit, and you just feel heart sorry for them, and you think, I get it, mate. You're just expressing it different. I'm nervous. I'm always really nervous. Do lots of superstitious stuff and all that about Rangers, because you can't control it. That's the football fan thing, It's Nick Hornby talked about that 30 odd years ago, but some people it just becomes a burst of anger and rage just because why do we keep doing this? And you're just like, that person cares. They deeply care. Let them go for it. But I see so much performative anger. People, and it's no young people. That's the thing. It's no the union bears. It's guys my age or older. I don't know if it's like you're getting to a certain point of life when you feel useless. So you're trying to get your machismo, that confusion of machismo and that thing of you're tough if you're angry. I see a lot of people doing that in life in general. Or it's that you've got too much going on. There's too many people at home depending on you. You've got a high-powered job, or you're really busy at your work or something like that. You just need the fucking Fitbit to go the right way. Maybe you're but it's a lot of it. I see a kind of performative. I'm proving that I'm a better Rangers fan than you by slagging Rangers, and I've never really understood the very attitude that put us into those hard times is what's going to come into the fore again. The players should be able to rise above the crowd. It's part of the toughening up process. This kind of stress testing thing that we tell ourselves we're doing when we put the players through this. You're acknowledging there is something to rise above. If the players are having to rise above this kind of thing, have a look at who's causing that thing to rise above. And if we, the fans, are the club, as we all claimed in 2012, what kind of fucking club does this make us? If we are the first line that the team's got to break, if we're adding an extra dimension of difficulty to every game Rangers play. There's a guy spitting in front of me. I was walking down. I wasn't late the other night going to the game. I was on time because I was late. I was going to go somewhere else before I went to the game on Wednesday night, and I didn't have enough time to do it. I was just going to go to shops, didn't have enough time. So I'm late for that, which meant I was in time for. So I'll just drive straight to Ibrox now. Parked to my usual spot. Got a better spot, from my usual spot because I was there. There was fewer cars about. But I'm still walking to Ibrox. But usually by the time I walk along to Ibrox, most folk are inside the ground. So it's the roads. Like going along Shield Hall Road and going past the Wee Rangers Social Club and all that. I don't know where this guy came from. The pavements are packed and all that, and it's all part of the atmosphere. But it's funny how sometimes it just feels rubbish. And there's a boy, and I'm talking about a grown man, like in his 30s or whatever, and he had a wee boy with him but he had something to drink. He had some sort of lager or something on him, and he's just spitting, just telling like, mate, you're going to spit on me. You know what I mean? You're spitting. But you don't, this is part of the game, it's part of the fun. But there's sometimes I do just think to myself, how many people here have read Parade's End? I mean, how many people here have read Parade's End? Ford Maddox Ford. It's one of the greatest books I've ever read in my life. And I've read all four of them. There's 4 books in it, and I've read all 4 of them. You tend to get them on in one book anyway. How many folk here have even seen the BBC adaptation of Parade's End? And it's top stopper, the screenplay and all that. They even, like Benedict Cumberbatch, the Christopher Teigen's character's tremendous, one of my favourite characters in history, the last Tory, and I'm a socialist supposed to be, and I just absolutely love this guy. I love the whole cat, I love the way it's written, and Rebecca Hall in that BBC ad, she's phenomenal. She's absolutely brilliant in it. You want to kill her, because she plays that character so well. But yeah, I just think to myself, I'll just go home and read Parade's End, which I've only read once, and it took you about a year to read it. You're here every 2 weeks, on average, for the year. This is a different thing altogether. This is what the Fit was all about. It's transgressive. It's, it's community for all community is about. And don't try to make out. Plenty of times I went to Fit when I was pissed and sectarian and fucking all over the place and being a horror to be around. But that was last week. That was I've been an absolute nightmare to be around at the Fit, but it's a community. This is every football club. It's got all different facets and different behaviours. It's a gathering of people. I'm just like, basically, it's just like Downton Abbey, really, isn't it? You're just loving the posh stuff, loving the posh when the working classes knew, but you're supposed to be a socialist now. And it's basically the literary Downton Abbey, isn't it? The Parade's End, but I don't know. There's a guy. This guy, he's booing Tav before we've even got inside the stadium, because you're doing that thing. We're walking up across that roundabout and just walking up towards the back of the broom line between the main stand. You can hear the tannoy announcement, the PA announcement of the team, and it's number 2, James Tavernier. And I'm not Irving Goffin. I'm there to the audience. The team know you, whether this is your front of stage behaviour or your back of stage. So many times it looks front of stage, or this posturing, or this anger that we hear. Sometimes it's just back of stage behaviour. It's behind the stage. It's just know what you want, but you can't help letting it come out. Your deepest, darkest feelings about the way the game's going. But it's not true. I am there the audience, the crowd as well. You know, I do love to see the lasses with the blue scarves on. I love to hear the boys all roar. But what I really hate is when somebody is booing the captain of the club before they've even got through the turnstiles. You know, 10 minutes before the captain of the club gives us the fucking lead. You know, a guy who's done so much for Rangers, has scored so many goals and all that. It's just, I don't know. It's no church. You know, the joy of football is the transgressive nature of it. You can swear and you can say all sorts of shit, and all the emotions are kind of painted in bold colours. But I just don't. I just doubt some of the emotions. I don't believe in some people's emotions. I think it's just emoting. I think it's performative, and I think it's a way of trying to look like a better Rangers supporter. What gets me is that the delusion, kind of oxymoron, that being abusive towards Rangers is the best way to support Rangers. You know, that's no nerves. I see it firsthand. It's grandstanding. For some, it's grandstanding. Others, it's kind of a neurosis about just trying to prove themselves in public. We spend our entire life as Rangers supporters encountering people in real life, online, on telly, or in the workplace who fucking hate Rangers. The amount of hate you get just out of left field from somebody you've never even met before sometimes because they find out you're a Rangers supporter. It's absolute hate. So why? People don't even follow football sometimes just to find out you're a Rangers fan. That's their cue to suddenly qualify themselves as a free-thinking bohemian, you know, by telling you how much they hate Rangers. You know, why the hell should I have to hear Rangers supporters hating Rangers when I go to Ibrox? You know what I mean? So it's just tapped into something that I've really had backed up. It wasn't that big a deal the other night, but it got to the manager, it got to Danny Röhl, and he's doing a great job. I just think there's no break from this. You know, and terribly loyal. But do I say anything? No, I never say anything when I'm amongst people who are slagging Rangers and all that that I don't really know, because I love these people. It's much easier talking about it in the abstract, much easier talking about it in the safety of my own home, because in reality it's like racist grandparents. You know, visiting people you love, grandparents, you absolutely love them to death. You wouldn't be here without them, literally. At least one of those grandparents. And you just love them to death, literally, again, and you think they're the best people in the world. You feel so safe and warm in their company, but you just pray that the conversation doesn't get round to takeaway meals or the newsagents, the local newsagents. I mean, likewise, I just keep praying that Rangers win. You know, but already that is not enough. We are already on to booing them for not winning by enough goals. My snagging, this is a snagging item. That's an hour I've talked about this. This is a snagging item for the next podcast. I mentioned on this podcast that we have gone on about that for so long. Sorry, folks, it's terrible. Just it's be all out of sync and all that. And I've just rambled far too much. But in my last podcast, I haven't even previewed Queen's Park yet. Jesus, I said that Kilmarnock had no real chances in that game against us the other night. It's only I watched the sports scene highlights. Bruce Anderson missed an open goal almost. He was through on goal with a terrible first half miss. I've just never registered with me at all. The Kilmarnock goalkeeper, Roos, is that the same goalkeeper? Because he was having he was making kind of technical mistakes from what I could see, the same way the goalie did in the previous visit to Ibrox for Kilmarnock, but no, it's a different goalie. It was Beach, that guy was called, that played against us in the last game. Skov Olsen's goal, I described that as him just taking it in his stride, just walking it literally within his stride, not having to change direction at all. He just swept it into the net. It was beautiful. But it wasn't. I watched it in the sports scene. He literally had to stop. He was stood still when the ball came to him, and he bounced the ball off his right foot onto his left, and he had to get it out from under himself. It was the fact that it wasn't within his stride that made it an even classier finish. So that was pretty woeful commentating from me. A fantastic finish. I was wondering, Motherwell still in the Scottish Cup? You know, they're playing Aberdeen at Pittodrie tonight, except they're not, because it's been rained off, that one. They're not playing, so that was because obviously we're playing Motherwell on Wednesday night. I accidentally said Romans had little involvement when he came on. Yeah, I was in the middle of gushing about how brilliant Romans was when he came on for us as a substitute. So I don't know, that was just a complete slip of the tongue. The cold was getting to me or whatever. I was thinking about Parade's End, about raging I was raging at Big Phil during the week there. Big Phil, he pointed out the fact he just used the phrase, we went nap, we'd gone nap. Again, Big Phil who gets in touch every now and then. He's top poster on the Fat Egg podcast. Great guy. Always love his posts. And he'd said, so we went nap the other night. Went nap. I was supposed to say that. I was sitting in the main stand. We've gone nap. That's what we used to say. I don't want to go all kind of off the ball. Back in the old days, we used to say. But it was, you scored 5 goals, you went nap. And I forgot to say that the other night. So that's a nice one. Big Phil there. Bringing a bit of class back to the podcast there. I don't. The one that really got to me as well, and multiple man had to come in there and point it out to me. Hibs are the SWPL champions, and I was going about Rangers, Celtic, Glasgow City. There's this parallel between Rangers, Celtic, and Queen's Park back at the beginning of the men's game, when the development of the men's game, and but Glasgow City weren't giving up the way Queen's Park kind of eventually got overtaken by Rangers and Celtic and blah. And I was going about this, and there's 3 teams at the top of the league, just the men's league. So the men's league's copying the women's league, because it's a 3. We know Glasgow City and Celtic and Rangers were involved in this. It was Hibs last season. Hibs won the. I have been to see the Rangers women's team. I've been to women's internationals. I do try to get. It's particularly embarrassing because it's my wee cousin. I used to play football out my back door at my house. She's handing out the medals to Rangers through and through. And Fiona's, she used to be head of the SFA, the women's development, the women's game and that. And now she's handing it. She was her pal, her and her pal. I get filmed bringing the trophy to Ibrox. They're bringing the actual SWPL trophy to Ibrox. She's the chief executive. I was at the MD. She's the managing director of the SWPL. So she was actually pitting the medals on the Hibs players. I think how she feels. Her husband used to play for Hibs, mind you, so it's not a bit different. But so that was particularly embarrassing. The only thing I would say to that is it's not a sexism thing, because I don't really know who's second in League One just now. I don't know about some details about the Norwegian or the I've seen about the Argentinian football's own Premier Sport just now. Clausura, Apertura. I don't even understand how their league works. And Argentinian football's sensational. It's some of the best stadiums in the world. So it's no a sexism thing. It's just if I'm no particularly fault, I just put all my time into watching Rangers and following their leagues. So as soon as I stopped recording, one of the things, that was all right. That post-match, fucking Hibs are the women's champions. That one really embarrassed me. Quick Kilmarnock debrief. The actual game itself. Tav should have been sent off, perhaps. It's hard to tell. Looks like he should have been. Should have got a second yellow card. He does look like he pushes the fella when he's the last man, but also the guy's going for it. He's leaning into him. I've got the blinkers on. I can see that maybe we got away with one there. Their red card, Kilmarnock's red card, a lot of talk about that. It is a red card. There's no discernible attempt to play the ball. And there's all this kind of, Rangers get a penalty for Rangers, penalty in the first 5 minutes. Look how many penalties they've got. That doesn't matter. Still a penalty. It's a stone wall penalty. The whole statistics thing is just Celtic 13 league titles out of the last 14. Does that mean that they're cheating? If you get something too often, does that mean 5 trebles in 6 years? Is that right? You must be cheating then to get that. No, that's one against the end. I don't know. Kilmarnock's goal. It wasn't as easy a ball as I imagined at the time. From Kilmarnock are much further up the park. I thought it was maybe just a long punt forward when Nasser Giga plays the ball to Jack Butland. It's maybe a weird one. Nasser Giga's trying to get us out of trouble, and Kilmarnock players are much further up on us generally. We're defence and we're goalkeeper at the time. But I think what happens with Jack Butland, I think he gets confused. It looks like he's wanting to hit it long, but there's a Kilmarnock player coming right down his throat. He might just punt it, but that would mean giving away possession. And you all boo us. You boo us when we do things like that. You want perfection. He can't do that. And he's wanting to get, it's your fault. Mr. Rowe, it's him. He's maybe wanting to give the ball to John Souttar, but John Souttar isn't there. He's at a different position. There's a Kilmarnock player between John Souttar and Jack Butland. So if Jack Butland does his usual thing and he goes to towards the west enclosure side of the 6-yard box, goes to the other side of the 6-yard box to sweep the ball in front of him. It's quite a hard thing to do as well if you're not a football, if you're a goalie. He's going to put it straight out of play. He'd be putting it out for a shy straight away. Again, the booing. I don't know. It's maybe a bit tenuous to say it's with blowing. He should be able to cope with that, but he did. It was a bit of a nightmare, but a bit more difficult, the whole situation, than I realised, but still inexcusable. Mikey Moore, perhaps my snagging list should have featured the fact that I failed to wax lyrical about electric Mikey Moore during this game. Late goal and an assist, but he generally just dominated the game. He's been brilliant under Danny Röhl, and I think his game at Parkhead, Mikey Moore, is his season in a nutshell. That's his season in microcosm. It starts out under pressure. Oh Jesus, Russell Martin. How good it is that I've forgotten his name. Russell Martin not playing him properly, not getting it, not making it hard, stifling Mikey Moore, but Mikey Moore just fighting. We could see that he was a trier. We could see that he had the ability, you know, and we were all blaming Russell Martin correctly for not being able to use him properly. A bit like that first half at Parkhead, where you can see he just kept trying, he kept going, he was getting owned, he was getting bossed about. It's by Anthony Ralston. I don't know, but he was getting owned anyway at Parkhead in that first half, but he kept coming to make mistakes and that we'd come back for more. Second half explodes, both at Parkhead and in this. It's just brilliant pattern you're getting from me here. Just far too much of it delivered far too stutteringly. Two Romans, Kilmarnock were softened up for him by Jaden Magoma, but he come on looking at kind of like peak Borna Barisic approaching Arthur Newman levels. Just he knows how to deliver a pass. That was my thing. Overlapping, time to perfection. I didn't even see him having to be defensive at all. But he looks absolutely phenomenal, and you can see that we have, for the first time in ages, probably the first time since we had peak Tav and peak Barisic in that season, in the 55 season, able to create overloads, able to just overwhelm teams. It's really, really promising. You know, Scott Olsen and the other new signings benched. The fact that they all started in the bench, the four new signings. Chermiti never got off. Sorry, Chuck Wani never got off the bench. But I think that's a masterstroke by Der Gaffer. I think Danny Röhl's economy in deployment, both tactical within each game and in terms of kind of match fitness, game to game, is nothing short of brilliant. His use of sports science and sheer timing and bravery in his team selections, substitutions, and rotations may indeed be the most spectacular aspect of this season. It's absolutely phenomenal. Getting Sterling and Suter to the point of, I'll never, the best example I think so far is getting Sterling and Suter, who had like a month and 8 months out beforehand, and then have had injuries subsequently, timing it so the two of them could play 90 minutes at Parkhead and be amazing without dropping points. Well, 2-0 up against St Mirren, and he brings on Clinton Nsiala, who St Mirren had eaten for breakfast twice, home and away. The previous season, he brings Clinton Nsiala on, and we concede a goal straight away, but we hang on and we get the 3 points out of St Mirren game. And this is all making sure that Dujon Sterling and John Suter's rehabilitation is perfect. They can play the full 90 minutes at Parkhead. Just the result that's going to change when are confirmed that we're on the up. It's a work of kind of craftsmanship, bordering on art. Maybe not starting Mikey Moore then at Easter Road cost us 2 points on Sunday, but equally, I'm at that point now with Danny Röhl where I think he's planning so far ahead and predicting games so accurately. I mean, you get managed. He does the one game at a time thing. We have to work in each game. We have to concentrate in each game, not get too far ahead of ourselves. But he also is splitting the games up into groups. He does. Oh, how many points can we get out of the next 5 games? So I think he's thinking about that himself. He's planning ahead the fitness of the players, how to rotate the squad, and then if they get suspensions or injuries within that time, he's better. He's more ready to tweak it again. You know, and I think he's probably looked at the game, this period of results, period of games we've got going on just now, and thought, we're going to drop 2 points somewhere. I can feel it in my water. I'll make it Easter Road because I've beat them home and away. I've won at Easter Road, so they'll not be able to doubt my ability to win away from home or to beat Hibs away. You know, so I'll do a 0-0, so that way, you know, we haven't conceded a goal to them or something like that. I know I'm getting a bit carried away with it, but his micromanagement of fitness and tactics is what lets a side that was in disarray and in 8th place in early October challenge for the title in January and February. I think it's also this timing that let them know exactly when to say something about the booing coming for the crowd as well. I've got just enough in the bank just now. I'll go for it just now when it can help us, give us a wee boost. The crowd will get behind us maybe for the Motherwell and Hearts games, but it will be minimalist in nature. I think we scored 2 late goals versus Dundee for a 3-0 win. This means after all those 1-goal home league victories, Livy, Hibs, Motherwell, St Mirren, we now have 2-0 versus Aberdeen, 3-0 versus Dundee, and a 4-goal win versus Kilmarnock. This should mean we're pumping Hearts 5-0 next weekend. And whether we do or not, that is how it happens. this quickly. That's how you do it this quickly. You get this level of improvement from October to now. This level of improvement at this rate, very deliberate, it's very slow in the moment. So you'll have like that 50-minute period between going 1-0 up against Kilmarnock and them getting a man sent off and it's starting to bang in the rest of the goals. It's very patient, 100% focus and effort from all the players. What you're watching is not a silk purse yet, but you're watching it get further and further away from being a pig's ear. We're still kind of in the process as a team. Processing needs a safe working environment. We provide that at Ibrox. That's your job, to keep the environment, to nurture this team, keep it safe. In between times, it goes on the road, Parkhead, Pittodrie, Easter Road. Like all good silk purses go on the road in the processing. But just back the team. We just need to back the team. That's what has to be said here. Aye, folks, sorry, but this has gone far too long. This is me just getting into previewing Queen's Park. Oh, Jesus. This last calendar year, under different managers, either side of a kind of life-changing takeover of the club, across 2 seasons, we've seen our worst ever Scottish Cup defeat and our joint worst ever European defeat. In fact, I would say that the 2 other times we lost by 6 goals in Europe, it was to far superior teams. Liverpool and Real Madrid, legendary, European Cup winners. So that's a worst ever European defeat and a worst ever Scottish Cup defeat. We saw them both in the last calendar year. To be where we are now in the league is phenomenal. But this is your Fat Egg podcast, the YouTube pod where even the host would rather be watching stealth camping videos. So don't feel guilty. I get it. There's no competition. A middle-aged bloke in a sleeping bag, in a bivouac, in a hedge, in the middle of a roundabout, or Rangers at home to Queen's Park in the 5th round of the Scottish Cup. There's no competition, no which one I'd rather be watching. This same weekend, 1 year ago exactly, I did a 1 hour and 49-minute podcast. It must be something about Queen's Park. This is the foreboding. I looked it up last night. I thought, well, I must have done a preview pod for this last year, this same weekend. I did, and it's 1 hour 49 minutes long, and most of it's about the transfer window and the European squad, because that was still an issue this time last year. But I do, I'll try and put a link up to it if you want to watch that. It's you're obviously, if you've got to this point in this podcast, you're obviously suicidal. You're obviously really needing someone to help with your sleep. So I'll put you onto that as well. But I spend about the first 10, 11 minutes talking about Queen's Park, and then the last 27 minutes talking about Queen's Park. It's all time-stamped, you can look at it. But the tone, oh my God, my tone in that podcast, the patronising, delusional, clueless, no idea what's about to happen tone of that pod. I pride myself in being somebody who is always fearing the worst. There's no hint of it in that podcast. It's like a fan media equivalent of those, the last selfie they took before disaster, or the selfie they took that led to disaster. It's somebody, big smiles, just before they fall off the end of the building that they're up the top of. Or smiles before they, fall off the canyon, fall into the canyon that they're leaning over the edge of. The big the shark, just before the shark bites their head off a split second after they've said, "Say cheese in the Pacific." It was that kind of equivalent of fan media podcast. I think I mentioned the programme that I've got up behind me the other night. Oh, Jesus, without understanding what I was doing. That's a programme of Queen's Park versus Berwick Rangers in the Scottish Cup. Is it 2000? My mate and I went to see, because we never thought Rangers would ever play in the lower league, so let's go and see all the grounds and fixtures that we would never see while watching Rangers. I went to see Queen's Park at Hampden. But I went to go to Shieldfield Park to see Berwick Rangers. Just so happened they were playing Queen's Park. So I've seen Queen's Park versus Berwick Rangers home and away in the league. And then I was just bored one day. The Rangers must have been playing the Sunday or something. We'll go to Hampden, see Queen's Park, and they were playing Berwick in the Scottish Cup. And I was talking about how Berwick Rangers, obviously, when Rangers lost to Berwick in the Scottish Cup in '67, the worst ever defeat in their history, certainly in the Scottish Cup. That was a couple of years before I was born and what have you. I'm like, all right, I've seen Queen's Park in the Scottish Cup, and it'd be the worst ever defeat in their history, probably, if they beat us at Ibrox. They did. Like the next day, they did beat us at Ibrox in the Scottish Cup. Alec, you fucking idiot. And I've got the programme. If they beat us again this game tomorrow, I'm going to burn it. I'm going to burn that programme, Queen's Park, 1884. I do all the Queen's Park history stuff in that podcast. If you want to look at it, last year's, they won the Scottish Cup 10 times. I say they played in the final for the last time in 1900. They got to the 1884 and 1885 FA Cup finals. Lost to two of them to Blackburn Rovers, or was it Blackburn Olympic? Blackburn Rovers. They did 3 in a row, didn't they? We got to the FA Cup semi-final in 1887, a couple of years later. But they're the first home team in an international. The Queen's Park provided all the players for the first Scotland team, the first international played in the world anywhere, doing 20 minutes walk from where I'm sitting just now at the Hamilton Crescent Cricket Ground in Partick. It was all Queen's Park players. 1872, the game against England, first recognised international football match ever played. All Queen's Park players. So they used to be the best team in the world, Queen's Park, back in the Victorian period. That's quite a long period, but they turned pro in 2019. They sold Hampden in 2020. Willie Hawley, all the money, blah, blah, blah. Biggest stadium in the world. Hampden was up until the Maracana got built in 1950. And now they're in a Queen's Park playing at Lesser Hampden. It's a capacity of 990. It's less than 1,000. It's something else. I was talking last season, the preview pod last season, I'm like, they're in the Challenge Cup final. They went in, after they beat us in the Scottish Cup, they lost 5-0 to Livingston at Falkirk in the Challenge Cup final, just to rub it in. But they did last season. They got put out of the Scottish Cup and the League Cup in the knockout stages by Aberdeen. I think it was maybe last 16 the League Cup. Aberdeen beat them at Pittodrie after they played us in the Scottish Cup. They went on, we didn't, and they played Aberdeen in the quarter-final. They lost to Aberdeen in the quarter-final at Pittodrie. Aberdeen, and I talked in that pod, like I always talk about the fact that Queen's Park, after Rangers and Celtic, Queen's Park have won the Scottish Cup most times. Celtic 42, Rangers 34, and then it's Queen's Park on 10. Still ahead of Hearts and Aberdeen, the two clubs that have, for a century been fighting out to see who's the third force in Scottish football. But Aberdeen had won 7 Scottish Cups last season. Hearts had won 8, and Aberdeen beat Queen's Park in the quarter-final. Then they beat Hearts in the semi-final before beating Celtic in the final. So they've taken out in consecutive games the two clubs closest to them, Aberdeen, before they went 8 each. It's now 8 each with the Jambos. Aberdeen ensured none of these closest rivals in the Scottish Cup history could get away from them. This is just something I noticed. This season, Queen's Park, they didn't get out of the League Cup group stage. I think they finished third in the League Cup group stage. They went out of the Challenge Cup at the quarter-final stage on penalties to Wraith Rovers, and they went bottom of the Championship on Tuesday. Basically, since they lost that playoff, no, it wasn't a playoff. It was a title decider. Last day of the regular season, they played Friday night. Watched it on BBC. A phenomenal game with the Queen's Park or Dundee could have won the title when Queen's Park were playing out of Oakville View, and of course Dundee won the game. But they went into the playoffs. Queen's Park didn't go up through the playoffs either. They nearly got into top flight, or back into the top flight for the first time in God knows how long, 50 odd years I would imagine at least. But since they've been going slowly downhill since then. They're still in the Championship, but they're worse this time. They went bottom of the Championship on Tuesday night. Ross County, who are also just plummeting since they got relegated last year. Ross County were bottom of the table, but they won the 6-pointer at Lesser Hampden on Tuesday night. They beat Queen's Park 1-0. The Queen's Park are now bottom of the Championship at the automatic relegation spot, but they're only a point behind Ross County, who they have a game in hand on, and they're only 2 points behind Airdrieonians, who they have 2 games in hand on. So it's not over, but they're definitely worse than they were last season. And it's just, I might need the kind of Sasha Lensa psychology to get me through the turnstile again on Sunday. I might need his kind of, what was it he called himself, the caddy. He's the caddy to Danny Röhl. I might need that to get me out the front door, to get me to download the ticket onto my phone. Last year, we just reached the last 16 of the Europa League. We were in the last 16 of the Europa League when we met Queen's Park last year. We've missed out around for the second year in the trot via 2 different group stage systems. Philippe Clement had got us into the last 16 of the Europa League. I know this, and we just beat the Celtic 3-0 at Ibrox. It was going to be fine. We'd missed out a couple of rounds of European football, so we're going to have some free weekends. We're playing Queen's Park, and it's not going to be a problem. Jesus Christ. We just played Spurs and Man U. The 2 teams who would get to the final, they would contest the final of the Europa League, and should have really beat Spurs. Great night at Ibrox. Man U, well, we nearly took a point off them as well at Old Trafford, a classic night at Old Trafford with a Rangers team that was totally ailing at the time, and oh, what a performance! And we're going to Nice and we're pumping Ligue 1 sides, getting pumped by Ligue 1 sides, we're beating Steaua Bucharest 4-0 and stuff. We got Olympiacos, who were a European trophy holder at the time, and drawn with them, but should have beat them as well. On night, we're absolutely phenomenal in Europe and all that, and we're getting our act together in the league. And then Queen's Park turn up and they have one shot on goal, and Seb Drodge scores it, and they deserve it. They totally. I mean, I don't really believe in the deserve thing, but you could see it coming. The whole you could see it coming from the previous round. When we beat Fraserburgh 5-0 non-league, Fraserburgh Highland League, and they deserved it. They deserved. Queen's Park deserved it because we weren't trying hard enough against Fraserburgh. We only 1-0 up at half time against them. After that game, sorry, I'm just remembering. Sorry, I've got a bit. You might have worked too. I've got a bit of kind of weed. I've got man flu or a cold or something like that, so I'm a bit in the slow side. But I am just remembering being stood outside talking of colds and that. I was chittering outside Ibrox. I think I had a cold then as well. Whatever, same time of year. It must be my just when all the drinking I've been doing over the Christmas period gets to me. But I was saying I'm chittering here, but it was nothing to do with the cold. It was just. I interviewed Tommy McLean over the phone once, asking about the run to Barcelona, just something the campaign in '72, and he took the semi-final against Bayern, the away leg, and he described it as the coldest atmosphere he'd ever been in. And it wasn't. It was like, do you mean it was freezing? Like the temperature was, and it was cold, and it not Bavarians, a different stadium there. At that time, Bayern were playing. It wasn't even the Olympic Stadium. They hadn't moved in there properly yet. It was the old. Oh, was it? No, Sabina Strasse. That's where their training ground is. What's it called? The name of the ground there. Oh, damn! I should really know that. But see, I've got a bit of cold or something. But it was. He talked about the game. It just like the atmosphere. And I thought that's just a cold, Teutonic atmosphere. That's what it was like for me. I was cold outside Ibrox after that game last year, but the chill, the chittering I was doing, the shivering, the free. It was mostly to do with what I just watched. Normally, I do the thing of if Rangers have a bad result, I'll do the wee kind of nonsense at the beginning of the pod to get rid of Celtic fans, to get rid of the kind of Schadenfreude crowd, just to be so. I'm talking all about Rangers tonight, and I'm more boring than I ever am. But I'm deliberately trying to be boring, but I couldn't do it that. After that game, I was just disrespecting Rangers supporters. I just have to get to this. Mostly it's Rangers supporters that are watching this. I need to just discuss this. And it's a sacking offence. I wasn't saying Clement should get sacked, but just out the blue, bang. This performance, it was unbelievable. And it was Callum Ferry saving the penalty, Tav taking the penalty in injury time. Despite all the shots we'd had, despite all the possession we'd had, Queen's Park were the one whose game plan was working. And that makes all the difference in a game. And there's no way Tav's scoring this penalty. But what a save it was from the young fella. I think there's no way Tav's going to score the penalty. For every penalty, I'm just pessimistic. So it doesn't mean anything, but what a save it was for that. And, if there's such a thing as deserving football, they certainly deserve it. And it seemed to be another penalty save that had put them out of this season's Scottish Cup, Queen's Park. The reason we're playing them again is almost as incredible as the result they got 1 year ago. I made that. I mean, after we beat Annan Athletic in the previous round, I did my post-match reaction pod, and a Queen's Park. We won 5-0 in my first game in the Scottish Cup last season. Look how that ended up. A Queen's Park even in the. Only worry about this if we get Queen's Park in the next round. I don't even know if they're still in the Scottish Cup. I didn't know if they were still in the Scottish Cup. And I was joking about Rangers socks. We wore blue socks against Annan with the home top, and it made us look a bit like Stranraer. And the draw we got for the next round, 5th round again, it was Queen's Park or Stranraer. And I started thinking to myself, maybe what's going to, I know it's happened to us when you think you're going to go back and do something that you usually do that you've done before, it never quite works out the same way. You get a bit ahead of yourself. Like when we thought we were going to win the Scottish Cup against Hibs because we've had a great season and all that, and we're back in the top. Let's go back into top flight already with a major trophy under our arm. That is one of the most horrible days ever. Like we played Motherwell in that promotion playoff, the first year in the Championship. We've already picked them at the League Cup while we're in the bottom tier. And they gubbed us home and away, and it was awful. I thought Queen's Park are going to do the same. They're going to go down to Stranraer, and they're going to end up. They'll be so busy thinking about the chance to do another giant killing against us like they did last season. They'll get giant killed because this is a team that's two divisions below them, Stranraer. And I did the same thing I did with the Hearts game the other night. I watched it on my laptop, and I saw they'd substituted Seb Droz, the guy who scored the goal against us last season, in the 119th minute. And I thought, well, he's obviously not very good at penalties. They're preparing for the penalties, and I watched the penalties by refreshing my laptop, the BBC website score, and I just kept refreshing the laptop, and it kept giving me what the score was with the penalty shootout, and eventually there was a save made by the goalkeeper, the Stranraer goalkeeper, that meant Stranraer won the game on the night. But that goalkeeper was on loan from Hearts. They'd got him on loan, I think, that day from Hearts, or the day before, an emergency loan. But because they'd got him after the original fixture had been postponed, it had been rained off, the original fixture, because they'd got him after the date that they hadn't notified the SFA in time. So it was this thing of, that's it. It's not, you've forfeited the tie, really. You've played somebody who was unregistered or registered improperly. I'm not quite sure. Wilder than that is that Queen's Park had done exactly the same thing. And 2 years before in the Scottish Cup, they beat Inverness Caley Thistle at Hampden. Beat Inverness Caley Thistle at Hampden in the Scottish Cup 2-0, I think. But it's Inverness Caley Thistle who go back to Hampden for the final. They reached the final because Queen's Park get thrown out because they had a loanee from Hearts who they hadn't registered properly. Bloody unbelievable. The coincidences here, it really is. So I think if Queen's Park do beat us again tomorrow, we just appeal this. There must be something. It should have been Stranraer we were playing. It's as dodgy as Marseille in 1993, so it is. It really is. Last season's gone. It's not going to happen again. It just feels like I remember sitting there watching that the penalties in the laptop, thinking, you thought you were going to come back to Ibrox? Oh, pathetic. No, you're going to come back to Ibrox and giant killers again. Well, you've got giant killed. How does it feel? Nope, they're coming back. They just won't go away. It won't stop happening. It won't stop. The Queen's Park are coming to Ibrox in the 5th round again, and it's no very good. Last season's game, Tav, Cherny, Diamande, Igaman started that game, and they still beat us 1-0 Queen's Park of the Championship. Yanis Hadji was playing that game. Nedim Bajrami, who scored the fastest ever goal in the Euros at the Westfalen for Albania against Italy, he's playing in this game, and he gets beat 1-0 after Queen's Park. Hadji's played in the Euros as well, captained his country and stuff like that. It was quite unbelievable. I'm going on about the fact that this season, when people have been lambasting us for not being very good at scoring goals, I said, well, we lost 63 goals in the summer. Cherny, Dessers, Igaman, 63 goals they scored between them last season. Fucking 3 of them were on the park in that game, and they couldn't get one goal between them in that game. Dessers come on at half time, Raskin come on at half time, John Suter come on 9 minutes before the only goal of the game was scored, and he come on for a Fernandez. Remember Rafael Fernandez? No, near the until I looked at this the other night. But now he's got Big Emmy Fernandez playing him. The starting 11 on Wednesday. So I don't know what that means. Is it different? Is it the same? There's enough players there who want revenge or whatever. I mean, Diamande played that game. Igaman started. I've been through it all before. But I think there's a lot. The Motherwell game. Motherwell having their game postponed tonight against Aberdeen. And by the way, I mean, Celtic fans, I know Aberdeen postponed this game earlier than they postponed your game during the week. But if you're looking for a conspiracy, how about the next team we play in the league? Next team Rangers play in the league away from home. We're going to Fir Park. They've had their previous 2 league games, the previous 2 games, both against top flight opposition, postponed for waterlogged pitches in 2 different cities. So Motherwell, the first game Motherwell have to play in the month of February is going to be at home to us. Whereas we're playing midweek, weekend, absolutely knackered. They're going to be fresh as a daisy. But I think Danny Röhl might be wondering if Motherwell are going to be more rusty than rested, and whatever he decides maybe affects who he plays against Queen's Park tomorrow to have them ready. There's players he's going to play against Queen's Park to make sure they're ready for Wednesday night. There's other players he won't risk against Queen's Park to make sure they're ready for Wednesday night against Motherwell. But we've got to make sure we take this game serious enough. The lesson was there for last season. It was confirmed that Youssef Chermiti, Emi Fernandez, Dujon Sterling were all injured the other night. Youssef Chermiti's got 7 stitches in his foot. He picked it up at Easter Road, this injury. I wonder if that's the one that Michael Stewart was slagging him for. Why is he sitting down? Why is he resting? What's taking him so long to get up and all that? What a pig Michael Stewart is. Manny Fernandez has got a knee problem, I think it was. It's one of those ones they don't know. Apparently, all of them are being assessed in the next 48 hours, and that was 48 hours on Thursday, so we'll know by now. Maybe you know better than me, but come on, big man. I hope you're fine for a Wednesday night. If rest tomorrow, don't take the risk. Same do John Sterling. I think he's simply been kind of rotated, just given the night off against Kilmarnock after him playing, because he more than anybody since Kamar Roof. He played at Easter Road, but more than anybody since Kamar Roof, Dujon Sterling needs gently bled back into the side after each and every injury all the time. I would much rather he played on Wednesday night. Basically, give them all the day off. Give Fernandez, Chermiti and Dujon Sterling. Don't even have them at Ibrox. Have them at home, resting up, doing what they've got to do to recuperate. Stevie Smith said they're all being assessed, but don't risk it. Liam Kelly. My starting 11, I think Liam Kelly needs the catharsis. He has to start back in goals. No one's going to think that the Butland's been dropped because of Wednesday's mistake, but a few might reassess their judgment on whose mistake it was in Porto that led to that second goal. But I think Liam Kelly has got to get the chance back in goals after playing against Queen's Park last season. Max Aarons at right back. Giga has got to play in the middle. And now Tav could come in instead of John Souttar at centre half, but I don't know if Tav's wanted more for Motherwell. I don't know what Danny Röhl's assessment. I don't know how he's using Tav just now this season, but I think Tav could maybe come in and play instead of Souttar at centre half to give John Souttar a rest to make sure he's going to be all right for Wednesday. Derek Cornelius is just back in training. According to Stevie Smith, he's not ready to play yet, but Tour Romans, he's going to start at left back. He has to get a start. Chukwueze has to start. Skov Olsen has to start. Nadiri has to start. They were benched the other night after starting games and being a bit slow. Chukwueze and Skov Olsen. Two Romans comes on. He's just come back from injury, but I think we're now in the situation where they've got this is ideal to get them at least an hour or something anyway, or a half under their belt. Get them going. Okay, so I think we're going to go 4-4-2. And let's just say the back four is Aarons, Giga, Tav, and Romans. You're then going to have, in a 4-4-2, it's going to be Skov Olsen, Diamande, Chukwueze, and Bajrami or Antman on the left-hand side. I think it's more likely to be Bajrami with Majovski and Nadiri up front. I think Chermiti's been rested. It could be John Souttar. I'm really not sure about who's going to play at centre-half. I think it has to be Nasser Giga. It's one of them. Maybe it's John Souttar at the back. But I think we then get Skov Olsen, Diamande, Chukwueze and Bajrami as your midfield. Majovski and Nadiri up front. Aarons at right back, Romans at left back, Liam Kelly in goal. If you're going to go 4-2-3-1, if you were going to play 4-2-3-1, you could have Majovski at 10, Diamande and Chukwueze as your two sitters, Skov Olsen on the left, Bajrami or Gassama. But I think Gassama, Mikey Moore and Asgard should also be totally rested. If not, you'll maybe have to come off the bench later on, but I would like to see them given a bit of a rest, those three. Even though Asgard's not the flavour of the month, he's probably still trying to bleed himself back into the team after the start we've had to this season. But I think it's going to be, you could have Nadiri up front and Majovski as the 10, as I say, Skov Olsen on the left, Bajrami on the right. Oliver Antman's going to be heavily involved as well, I would imagine. But I think it's going to be 4-4-2. If I've got to guess, I'll go Aarons right back, Giga centre half, Souttar centre half, Romans left back, Diamande, Chukwueze, Skov Olsen, Bajrami as your midfield, and Majovski and Nadiri up front. That's my score prediction: 10-0. It's going to be 10-0 to Rangers. They're going to win 10-0. Another thing that happens sometimes is, as we know as well, you have a fantastic triumph and then instantly there's something that comes along. If you're not in a situation to maintain those kind of triumphs, there's something that comes along and just ruins it, almost threatens to ruin it really, really quickly. We get to the 2008 UEFA Cup final and then we get put out by Kaunas, first round of Europe the following season. That's us out of Europe. We're waiting to get back. You know, like when we got a goal away from the Champions League final, like let's get back in, let's get back to being a goal away. Let's have another go at getting to that Champions League final. We get put out in the qualifiers by Levski Sofia the following season. We get to the Europa League final 2022. Following season, we get into the Champions League group stage and take a record doing. It's been held up. It's not strictly speaking true, but held up as the worst ever performance in the Champions League group stages by any club. And I think so. Queen's Park, they win 1-0. we're going to win 10-0 this time. So that every time they think about beating us 1-0, they'll be thinking about the fact that the following season they lost 10-0. I don't know, maybe not. I don't think about Kaunas. No, I don't think about getting to the 2008 UEFA Cup final. So yeah, that's not really how it works. But oh, I know Ryan Ladiri came on and missed a sitter the other night, but that's got rid of him. Sorry, I couldn't read my writing there, but that's him getting rid of a big bag of nerves. His nerves. He said he was nervous about the move, and no wonder. Wondering if you're going to be in Germany or Scotland, and it's going to happen. The summer's going to happen right now. But he's a bit worried about it. Maybe that's why he missed that kind of sitter that he missed the other night. In his first appearance for the club coming on as a sub. So I think he's going. I'm looking for him to have a hat trick on his debut, like Chris Boyd in the Scottish Cup. He's not quite getting to Colin Steen proportions yet, I would imagine. Now his starting debut, and Colin Steen's 3 goals against Arbroath and 3 goals against Hibs in his first 2 games for Rangers. He's not going to do that, but I think maybe a chance he could come on and get a wee hat trick to start off Ryan Ladiri, his first start for the game. We're going to win 10-0. I wasn't at the Valletta game, the first time we played Valletta, the 83-84 European Cup Winners' Cup. That was our second, our penultimate home game in the only European competition we've ever won, and we won it 10-0. Quite a way to bow out before we played Porto in our last ever Cup Winners' Cup match. But I wasn't at that one, 83-84. I wasn't going to the games regular then. I wasn't at Pataudry when we beat Keith. It was 10-1 in the Scottish Cup in 95, 96-ish. I don't know, Brian Laudrup was playing. I wasn't at the 8-1 game against Kilmarnock at Rugby Park. When was that? 79, 80-ish or something. That was. I was at the February 89 8-0 win over Stranraer, who were supposed to be playing this weekend. I was at that 8. I've only seen Rangers scoring 8 goals once. I've never seen us scoring. I think I've only been there in the stadium. We've scored 8 goals on one occasion. Maybe there's probably something else that I'm missing out. But listen, I would like to see that happening again. I'd like to see it happening tomorrow. When England lost 1-0 to the USA in the 1950 World Cup, Belo Horizonte, back home when the telegrams arrived, it wasn't live on the telly then, I don't even know if it was on the radio as such, but when the telegrams arrived saying it was 1-0 to the USA, people back in England thought it was a misprint. They thought a digit had been missed out, or they thought it was 10-1 or 10-0 to England. They thought that's what it should have been. We can't avenge what Queen's Park did to us last season. There's nothing to avenge. It was a great day for them, and that's it. But against the first side that England ever played, Queen's Park, it would be nice if we could just pair off what happened last season with a result that puts it in a more realistic perspective, and at least it lets us pretend that last year's result was just a misprint. I've never been there when Rangers scored more than 8 goals, and that would be nice. A wee bit of kind of compensation for me. Yes, we only beat Annan 5-0, and they're from 2 leagues further down, and they're part-time. But there'll be leagues anyway. There's not much distance between these teams. And it just so happens that we have about £20 million worth of January signings needing to hit the last stage of their match fitness in this game. So 6-0 up at half time, and I want the Rangers players going up to the tunnel. Go down the tunnel, just going like, what? Sorry? No booze, there's cup in the ears, giving it all that, as you go down the tunnel at half time, 6-0 up, and then we win 10-0 at full time, and Danny Röhl and his coaching staff come out and they join the players, and they're just pointing up, it's like, boo, you can't even sell out the seats. Some supporters, you're boo, you're the shittest supporters ever. Oh, because it's on the telly on a Sunday, it's not on the season ticket. Boo, you're garbage. That's the kind of players and the kind of management that I want our club led by. Enjoy the game, folks.